welcome back to Pet Food Forum TV. I'm your host, Kristen Levine, and right now I'm joined with Mike Annis, a partner with Hush Blackwell. Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
Great to be here.
So let's start off by talking about what's created this surge in lawsuits around marketing and packaging pet food.
You know, I'd have to say there are a couple of things. Pet food, as we understand it, makes up about, in the United States, about $90 billion a year. And when you start getting into specialty foods or to premium branded foods, you're talking about 25% of that. So around $8 billion a year. I think that the consumer's demand for transparency is a huge driving factor. Let's face it, we treat our pets like they're one of our human family. And if we're concerned about what we're feeding our human family members, we're also concerned about what we're feeding our pets. And so when you take into combination, I think, the consumer's demand for transparency.
Speaking of words and phrases, what are some of those trigger words that cause the most problems or that companies should consider before using?
Right. Well, I think that there are some that are universal, and a lot of them have really come out of human food cases, human food and beverage cases. That really is kind of the harbinger for us, or the precursor, what we should probably expect to see on a go-forward basis. Those terms are generally undefined by any regulatory entity. They are vague and ambiguous by their own character, have perhaps multiple inconsistent meanings to whomever you ask.
So speaking of consumers, what role do consumers play in getting these lawsuits to court?
Well, that's a great question. What a lot of people probably don't know are there are a number of professional plaintiffs, people like you and me that actually end up being
in every walk of life, right?
that they end up as a consumer. They certainly qualify potentially to say that they were duped into buying a particular product, or that they perceived that the quality was going to be better and they paid a premium for that product over the alternative. There are a group of plaintiffs' lawyers, people that spend their time on the plaintiff side of cases, that actively advertise and promote, trying to recruit people to become plaintiffs. A lot of times, it's the bar, it's the attorneys themselves that figure out that perhaps there's a problem with some labeling, and then they'll try to find a consumer to figure out that they were confused.
Do you think our industry is aware of that?
I don't know. It's a great question. I don't think a lot of lawyers are aware of that, but there are websites out there. Topclassactions.com is one. It's an active promoter, so law firm that does a lot of plaintiffs work, particularly on the false advertising, in the false advertising business. They can rent space and, for all intents and purposes, actively advertise and promote. They say there's an active investigation going on in regard to blank. If you have any of these problems, let me know. And there might be a chat board, right, that goes along with it. And so we get to see chapter and verse of what people are saying. And then they might visit back with those folks that were posting up similar concerns.
So are you primarily working with the industry to prepare them? Or once they're already involved in a lawsuit?
Yeah, unfortunately.
Advisory capacity or when
right,
they're in
it's
trouble?
a good question. So it's a little of both, but what I tend to say is that I'm a trial lawyer, and so usually the cat's already been in the litter box before I get invited. There's already a problem. Right. But as part and parcel of any dispute that we have, any of these false advertising disputes, if they're going to resolve, there's going to likely be two major components of that resolution. One will be what I call the injunctive aspect, which is we're going to do something to address or curb the advertising that allegedly caused the problem. The other aspect is money. Right. So yeah, I mean, even once there has been suit filed, there is counseling that goes into, okay, kind of three groupings of what do you want, what do you need, and what can you live with? Right. Those are three inconsistent things.
I see.
Right.
But what percentage of lawsuits would you say actually make it to trial?
Oh, it's teeny tiny fraction. So of all lawsuits that are filed, not just considering those that are directed to false advertising, the rate, I think, is less than 3%, might be around 1% now. Okay. So cases actually, of all the disputes that we have, a fraction of those actually go to suit. That there's a lawsuit that is filed, and of those that are filed, a fraction of those ever actually make it to where you're impaneling a jury.
Mike, thanks so much for joining us today. Great advice, and hopefully companies won't need it, but you're here if they do need you.
Well, thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Absolutely, and we'll be back with more on Pet Food Forum TV.